Hello, my name is Pastor Kathy. I'm the pastor at Pleasant Valley Lutheran Church near Malabar Farm and St. Paul Lutheran Church in Lucas. Greetings. We are reading through the Bible with commentary. We're up to Genesis chapter 41. We are reading about Joseph, which is one of the most interesting stories in the entire Bible. And it's very tempting to just read like a half an hour's worth of reading today because the 2 chapters is not going to cover it. And there's not a set amount that I'm reading, but I am trying to keep it into little bite-sized chunks. So the plan is to read chapters 41 and 42 today. But last we saw Joseph. He was in jail. His 11 brothers, 10 of them, had sold him into slavery. The slaves had taken him to Egypt. He had gone to Potiphar's house, where Potiphar's wife had accused him of sexual molestation, so he got thrown in jail. And while he was in jail, 2 of Pharaoh's highest officials, the baker and the cupbearer, had been in there, had dreams, and he said, well, God interprets dreams. And then he said, don't forget about me when you go back to Pharaoh. And the cupbearer completely forgot about Joseph. So that's where we left off. We're now in chapter 41. After 2 whole years. So Joseph, this is 2 years after Joseph talked to the cupbearer. He has been there for years. He has been already in Egypt for a while. After 2 whole years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile. So Pharaoh is basically the king of Egypt. And Egypt is such an ancient country, ancient civilization, that there are actually in ancient Egypt, there were archaeologists that studied even more ancient Egypt. Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile. And the Nile River, of course, is the river that runs through Egypt and floods regularly, so that normally Egypt is not really subject to a lot of famine because the water that they really depend on comes down the Nile River from Africa. So even if there isn't rain, it doesn't matter because they've got the Nile, and the Nile is their lifeblood. But Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile, and there came up out of the Nile 7 sleek and fat cows, and they grazed in the reed grass. Then 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came up out of the Nile after them, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the Nile. The ugly and thin cows ate up the 7 sleek and fat cows, and Pharaoh awoke. So, fat cows, skinny cows come eat the fat cows, and they're still skinny. Then he fell asleep and dreamed a second time. 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing on one stalk. Then 7 ears, thin and blighted by the east wind, sprouted after them. The thin ears swallowed up the 7 plump and full ears. So again, 7, again, fat, swallowed up by thin and still thin. Pharaoh awoke, and it was a dream. But if you have the same dream twice, especially in ancient times, they said, well, this is clearly a sign or something important. In the morning, his spirit was troubled, so he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Verse 9. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, I remember my faults today. Once Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the captain of the guard. We dreamed on the same night, he and I, each having a dream with its own meaning. A young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. When we told him, he interpreted our dreams to us, giving an interpretation to each according to his dream. As he interpreted to us, so it turned out. I was restored to my office, and the baker was hanged. So cupbearer 2 years later is like, oh yeah, I know a guy who can maybe help us, maybe. Verse 14, Then Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was hurriedly brought out of the dungeon. When he had shaved himself and changed his clothes, he came in before Pharaoh. So Joseph has been living in the dungeon, which means he's been basically at the mercy of the chief jailer who he's been serving. But if he has any food, it's because they feel gracious toward him. So they have to clean him up before they can bring him before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have had a dream, and there's no one who can interpret it. I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph answered Pharaoh, It is not I. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, In my dream I was standing on the banks of the Nile. 7 cows, fat and sleek, came up out of the Nile and fed in the reed grass. Then 7 other cows came up after them, poor, very ugly, and thin. Never have I seen such ugly ones in all the land of Egypt. The thin and ugly cows ate up the first 7 fat cows, but when they had eaten them, no one would have known that they had done so, for they were still as ugly as before. Then I awoke. I fell asleep a second time, and I saw in my dream 7 ears of grain, full and good, growing on one stalk, and 7 ears, withered, thin, and blighted by the east wind, sprouting after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 good ears. But when I told it to the magicians, there was no one who could explain it to me. So this is a linguistic device that it's repeated. If you are oral tradition, which this story was told through oral tradition for generations, then having the repetitive nature of the story helps you to be able to memorize it and tell it. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dreams are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, as are the 7 empty ears blighted by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown to Pharaoh what he is about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and then there will arise 7 years. After them there will arise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land. The plenty will no longer be known in the land because of the famine that will follow, for it will be very grievous. And the doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that the thing is fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it about. Now, therefore, let Pharaoh select a man who is discerning and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land, and take 1/5 of the produce, so 20%, of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plenteous years. Let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming, and lay up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for the food in the cities, and let them keep it. That food shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to befall the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine. So, better get ready, Pharaoh. This is coming. God has said it's definitely coming because you got a double dream. The dream means the same exact thing. 7 good years, 7 bad years. So during those 7 good years, you need to save 20% of everything. Verse 37, the proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. Pharaoh said to his servants, Can we find anyone else like this, in whom is the Spirit of God? So Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since God has shown you all this, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. So it's not actually that Joseph is discerning, well, it's discerning that he discerns what God is saying. So God himself is the one who gives the interpretation. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only with regard to the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. Removing his signet ring from his hand, Pharaoh put it on Joseph's hand. He arrayed him in garments of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in the chariot of his second in command, and they cried out in front of him, Bow the knee. Thus he set him over all the land of Egypt. So he went from having to be cleaned up to be brought before Pharaoh to being second in command. Signet ring means he basically has the authority to do whatever he needs to do. He's been given the least vehicle. He's got He's got the chariot, he's got the clothes, he's got the ring, he's got all the perks and all the accoutrement, all the fancy things to say that he is second in charge only to Pharaoh, which makes him basically a vizier, is the title that he would have had. Moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without your consent no one shall lift up hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zephanath-paneah, and gave him Asenath, daughter of Potipherah, priest of On, as his wife. Thus Joseph gained authority over the land of Egypt. Now, he probably didn't give Joseph the name like while he's just still standing there. It probably this was a little process that took a little time, but it didn't probably take a lot of time. So the name Zephanath-paneah is basically God speaks, he lives, or sustainer of life. So the idea that he is going to be causing life to happen, or that God spoke and that because of God speaking there is life. And his wife is the daughter of a priest, and so he's marrying into nobility, into royalty. He's got all the perks, including the noble wife and everything. 46. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. During the 7 plenteous years the earth produced abundantly. He gathered up all the food of the 7 years when there was plenty in the land of Egypt, and stored up food in the cities. He stored up in every city the food from the fields around it. So Joseph stored up grain in such abundance, like the sand of the sea, that he stopped measuring it. It was beyond measure. So they made storehouses, they made silos and barns, and they started storing it all up, and there was so much that they couldn't even keep track of how much, because it was a good 7 years. Verse 50. Before the years of famine came, Joseph had 2 sons, whom Asenath, daughter of Potipherah, priest of On, bore to him. Joseph named the firstborn Manasseh, and the footnote says, making to forget. For, he said, God has made me forget all my hardship and all my father's house. The second he named Ephraim, which is from the word fruitful, to be fruitful. For God has made me fruitful in the land of my misfortune. Verse 53. The 7 years of plenty that prevailed in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began to come, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in every country, but throughout the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, Go to Joseph. What he says to you, do. And since the famine had spread over all the land, Joseph opened all the storehouses. He sold to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all the world came to Joseph in Egypt to buy grain, because the famine became severe throughout the world. Oh my goodness, I was going to do 2 chapters, because the next part of the story is very interesting. But I think we are going to stop there. And we'll do maybe 3 chapters tomorrow, because basically today it's about how Joseph rises to power. He gets out of the prison and becomes second in command, and now he's got the wife, the car, all the trappings, and all the power, and 2 sons, and he's just doing very well. And the dreams have come true. There were 7 years of plenty. They've stored up tons and tons of grain, literally tons and tons of grain, and now the famine has started. So we will stop there for today. Tomorrow we will pick up in verse 42 and hear about, well, the famine is all over the world, and Egypt is not prone to famine because of the Nile, but the land of Canaan is prone to famine because they depend on the rain, and it sometimes doesn't rain there. So we will hear about what happens next tomorrow. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord look at you with favor and give you peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Go in peace. Serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.